believe that Mary Magdalene shows us the purity, the pure essence of the feminine energy, the pure essence of what it means to be a goddess and what it means to hold the energy of the Divine Mother. And for me, that is the biggest teaching on being, about being a woman. Of course, you've got the womb teachings and the womb rites, but just understanding that my body was made to carry this energy, and I chose this body. You know, so I see her representing this purity of this pure essence of feminine energy. And I just wanted to know what was your opinion about this. How do you feel about this, and how do you express this, Krishna?
You know, for anybody to imagine that Yesu would marry any woman who was not his equal is just not understanding at all what happened. Two messiahs were expected at the time of Christ, and many believe that John the Baptist was the first and Yesu was the second. But John the Baptist, although he fulfilled many of the prophecies, he did not fulfill the prophecy of returning to life after death and these types of things. So when you actually examine the truth of what happened in history, we can't say that John the Baptist was the first Messiah. We can say that Yesu was the first Messiah. So who's the second Messiah? I have absolutely no doubt that Mary Magdalene is the second Messiah.
Totally, Krishna.
just as we are created in God and Goddess's image, you know, we are created in God and Goddess's image on earth. There is a masculine divine male and a female goddess. So here on earth we have man and women. If there was only a God, then there would only be man on earth if we're created in his image. So we're in their image. So when God sends to this world a messianic king like Yeshu, who was destined to come and transform the world with his magnanimous teachings, his grace, his beauty, his sweetness, his understanding, his compassion, and his willingness to go through the worst kind of suffering so that the message of transcendence and the teaching of finding a way out of one's suffering would span the centuries. What a brave soul he was. And when Mary Magdalene anointed Yeshu twice, she did this. She did this once. Once she would bathe his feet, and she anointed his head and feet with the spikenard oil, and she wiped with her hair. This was an engagement ceremony. 2,000 years ago, when a woman washed a man's feet or anointed his head with sacred oil, this was an engagement ritual ceremony. It is not something that any woman would ever do to a man in public unless they were getting married. If this same ritual is repeated in September, then at that time you know that the woman is now pregnant. She is with child. The second ceremony is the final marriage. It means the woman is fertile, she has conceived the man's child, and is now worthy of receiving the man as her husband. At that point, if a woman wasn't pregnant, he could then choose to take a second wife. These were the rules and the laws of Yesu's time. Now, Mary Magdalene did this ritual twice. That's actually in the New Testament. And that is my main evidence, if you like, for why they were a married couple. There is no way that a messianic king like Yesu would allow a woman to do a bridal ritual in public twice unless she was his wife. Then, of course, there's the third evidence is that in the Gospel of Philip, it says that the master would kiss her often on the mouth in public, much to the annoyance of Peter. So why would a man like Yeshu, you think back to 2,000 years ago, I mean, they were living like you've been to the Middle East where the women are covered up. That was the society that we lived in when Yeshu was alive. It was very chaste society. A man would not kiss a woman in public unless it was his wife, and even then he wouldn't usually do it, which is why it's mentioned in the Gospel of Philip, because it was so unheard of. He loved her so much that he kissed her in front of everyone on the lips and let everybody know she is my equal. And he told Peter, she is my equal. I have made it so. because the patriarchal culture back then was that women, the Jewish men back then, you have to realize, they didn't even believe that women had souls.
Yeah.
They used to sit around and have meetings and think that women had no soul. So here is Yeshu coming along and marrying this woman and kissing her on the mouth and allowing her to preach, allowing her to heal. It was unheard of. He was creating a completely new paradigm. So this is the vessel of the Magdalene. So as the second Messiah, here she is. She is now crossing these bridges. She's asking the Master for divine instruction. How do I practically apply these teachings that you've given the world, so that I can actually cross over from this world into eternality? And so she is the messianic teacher. And right now, during this time, Mary Magdalene's name is on so many people's lips. And why is there this big return of the Magdalene during this time? It's because it was predicted.
Yes.
That, and I go into this in great depth in my book, Woman in Red Magdalene Speaks, is that when Mary Magdalene returns to this world, as she enlightens herself, as she herself does the greatest of all deeds, which is to become enlightened within the kingdom of God, once she attains that, her journey into that flowering and that opening allows all people on the earth, especially women, to open with her. All of the bounds and the chains which have bound people's souls and humanity for 2,000 years are being unchained by her energy right now. And that's why she is with her. She is returning the divine feminine to the side of our divine Lord. And this was something that needed to happen. It was prophesied it would happen during this time, and it is happening as we speak. And this return of bringing the divine feminine back to the side of her Lord, it is crucial to our well-being on earth. It's predicted that when the world accepts that Yesu was married, all peace will come to earth. There will be no more wars. This cutting off of the feminine, which happened 1,700 years ago, has created so much strife and war and problems and dogmatic behavior. And when you look at what's going on in the church, this is fascinating. So in the Catholic Church, you've got these cardinals walking around wearing red.
Yes.
You know, well, why are the cardinals all wearing red? Actually, 2,000 years ago, the color red was worn by women who were enlightened, who were looked up as the greatest of teachers. Mother Mary, you've got Mother Mary, who was the Mary of Yesu's time. When Mother Mary dies, Mary Magdalene became the Mary. She became the watchtower, the one who's signaling which way to go, which way not to go. So why is she the apostle to the apostles rather than one of the men? Well, many reasons why she is, because she's the one who's actually asking the questions, saying, well, how do I do this? What is this bridge? How do I put my foot here? What is the goal of life? How do I get rid of these things that have oppressed me? Where is the kingdom? So this is her glory, and it's natural for women to want to explore these very, very deep matters of spirit. Men tend to get very intellectualized when it comes to religion. They like to study the scriptures, they like to study the law, the verses. They like to recite the verses, and it becomes very dogmatic. But the women are the ones bringing in the emotion. What is bhakti? What is devotion? Bhakti it's an emotion, it's love. When we experience divine love, that we love God, we love Goddess, and they love us in return. This is where the matter and spirit is connecting us to eternality. And this is our strength, and this is our beauty, and this is what we're carrying in our Grail cups right now, is this understanding that without divine feminine and divine masculine collecting in one cup together united, we are incomplete. And none of the other apostles were bringing this thinking in. It was very rigid. It was actually very patriarchal. And in fact, we know that Peter and Paul were women haters. In fact, they were known women haters. Even though Peter was a married man, Paul never married. He was the only one of the apostles that didn't marry. So how can we think that all of the apostles are married? They all had children. So how is it that Yeshu's not married? He's their teacher. He's the king. He is the man who came to continue this messianic thread of DNA from King David. And it was predicted. If you were born into a royal family of such importance as Yesu was, would you not have children? What king doesn't have children?
I know.
Show me one king in history. Look at what Henry VIII went through to try to bear a son. It was the most important thing to a king, was to have a child, to get married and have children. So if the church would allow Yesu and Maria to be married in the public forum, then all of a sudden, all these priests and cardinals and popes and everybody and teachers in all of the churches and in all forms of religion, everything would change. They can marry, they can have children, they can be natural with themselves. But this cutting off of the divine feminine, the cutting off of their own ability to unite with a woman, which is natural, it's nature, this is how God created us. When we cut that off, what do we end up with? We end up with men who have warped sexual preferences. And that's what we're living with in today's paradigm. I really believe that if we bring Mary Magdalene back to Yesu's side and we say, well, you know, let's put the women back in red, let's take the cardinals out of the red color, because the Catholic Church stole the power of the red color, and they put their cardinals in this color, and they demoted women to blue dresses. I don't know if you know this history, but it's fascinating history. Like Mother Mary is always depicted in a blue dress. Well, this demotes her, in fact. It's actually a demotion of her actual position. And the women who wore red back in the day, all of a sudden the color red from the year 300 AD on became associated with a woman of loose moral character. So all of a sudden, anyone who wore red was considered to be a prostitute, a low-class woman. So they turned it upside down. So for centuries, it was unheard of. Women wouldn't wear red. No way would you wear red. When I was growing up, I was afraid to wear red because I thought people would think I was whorish or something, or I was up for it. And I'm not that kind of person. So when you go back to what we were talking about the importance of this pure energy, what is this pure empowered energy of the feminine, and what is it that we come here to embody? It's certainly not loose moral character. That's not what Mary Magdalene and Yesu were about. You know, this putting Mary Magdalene out like a prostitute or some sexual priestess in a temple, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, do your research, please. If you're out there, if you're one of these people who believes that and who is promoting that thinking, please go and do some historical research, because Mary Magdalene was not that. And she was a very pure vessel, and she was the Holy Grail, which means the Sang Grail, the holy vessel that received the seed from her husband Yeshua to birth to holy children who would continue this lineage on, which was very ancient. And it was so important to these people back then. If you go back and you think how these people thought, having children and continuing their bloodline was crucial to their messianic mission, along with their spiritual message, of course, but both are important, and you can't have one without the other.